So Shams Charania, who is now with ESPN, formerly of The Athletic and Yahoo, he's the go-to guy now for breaking news in the NBA. He was on ESPN yesterday and said that the Kevin Durant trade talks are about to heat up.
The conversations will now begin to pick up on a potential trade of Kevin Durant out of Phoenix. Over the next 2 to 3 weeks, conversations will begin to heat up. I'm told the Suns will work with Durant and his business partner, Rich Kleiman, on a trade home. There's expected to be a robust market for him, 4 to 16, potentially ahead of the NBA draft. But between now and that NBA draft later this month in June, there's going to be serious conversations about moving Kevin Durant, and still one of the great players in the NBA right now, an all-NBA caliber player, still at the prime stages really of his play in terms of as a scorer. So we'll see where Kevin Durant ends up this offseason.
Okay, so there's a deal that was thrown out there by Sam Quinn, who's a basketball writer for CBS, that I'll lay out in just a second. But the tease into this segment was, would you do this deal for Kevin Durant? And I'm about to say what the deal is. I just laugh at the text. The answer is no, and I don't need any details of the deal. We've got a few of those. No deal for Durant. The Rockets need Devin freaking Booker. Get the fingernail polish wearer gone. That's about Jalen Green. Okay, easy. All right, so that's actually a good lead-in. Sam Quinn's proposed trade is, he says, I would do Jalen Green and the number 10 overall pick for Kevin Durant and see if Phoenix will do it. He says that if Phoenix wants to, I'll read the exact tweet. My feeling on KD and the Rockets, if you can get him for Jalen Green and the number 10 pick, do it. I don't think Green is a part of their future anymore, and they don't have minutes for a rookie anyway. But the future Suns picks that the Rockets have, Amen Thompson, Şengün, Jabari, Tari, Reed Shepherd, are all off limits. This is how I feel most similar to Sam Quinn in terms of a deal for Kevin Durant. You're going to have to give up something to get him. So we know that. The Shams Charania points out there's enough teams that want Kevin Durant on their team that there will be a market for him where you're going to have to give up something to get him. Totally agree with the part where Sam says they don't have minutes for a rookie anyway. And that's how I feel about these first-round picks, just to draft another guy who rots on the bench. No thanks. No thank you. The part where he says, I don't think Jalen Green is part of their future anymore, I definitely think the Rockets – I don't think the Rockets would do this deal. Let me put it that way. I think the Rockets want to try really hard to keep Jalen Green. I'm saying if I were Rafael Stone and the Fertitta family, I would do this deal. Jalen Green and the number 10 pick for Kevin Durant.
You would.
I would do this deal.
Just the one pick, yeah. And I think that's the part, too, where what do they really feel about Reed Shepherd and all the other options in the backcourt, but also the fact that Kevin Durant provides you an opportunity to play more positionless basketball as a team. It gives you a lot of versatility in a way that Antetokounmpo might not. And if that's because of his age, he's going to be 37 years old this year, that's where the compensation, they can say that the thing is, like, it's not about what Phoenix is looking for. It's what are those other 3 or 4 teams willing to give up?
Yes.
Because it's not like Phoenix is up against it. Like, Phoenix does not have a whole lot of leverage. It becomes more just Houston versus those other teams. And all of them are looking at Phoenix and thinking like, we got them backed into a corner. That's appetizing to me. And because Jalen Green does have a future, this is where it gets complicated. I'm fine with Jalen Green right now, as long as I'm not thinking about him who's going to be a guy who becomes a superstar in the NBA.
That's right.
I can't watch this whole season and act like Jalen Green wasn't a huge part of them getting to where they eventually did.
Sure.
But you watch in the playoffs, and it's hard to envision that, man, other great players, even if they struggled in the playoffs or even if they struggled when they got blitzed and double-teamed in the playoffs, they still, by and large, produce more than single digits, in playoff games. So I don't think I'm skeptical that he'll ever be a superstar, but I can't sit here and act like he's not a valuable part of the team.
Right.
But if you bring in Kevin Durant, it's such a huge boost immediately. And you do have this other huge core of young players that you feel good about developing over time. I'd be good with that trade.
Yeah, I would too. I would be good with that trade. I think one of the I think one of the trump cards that the Rockets have in this competition for Durant, because there will be multiple teams, as Shams points out, 4 to 6 teams that are going to be in the market for Durant. And it was the same group of teams that were in the market at the trade deadline. The Heat are in there. The Spurs were being bandied about last night on social media as the place Durant wants to go. There, according to the reports, Phoenix is going to, as Shams said, going to work closely with Durant's representation. So this is not going to be something where Durant wakes up and looks on social media and sees he's been traded. Like, he's going to be heavily involved and manipulate this thing. Because Durant with coming to Houston, from a Phoenix perspective, the one thing the Rockets have that there's some emotion attached to, evidently, are Phoenix's picks. They have Phoenix's picks in this draft. In the draft in 2 years, in the draft the year after, they got a pick swap in there or something. There's something about getting your own draft capital back. It feels like you're buying something back of your own that you've got an emotional attachment to. And so I do think that's material. I don't know that it's a difference maker in a trade, but it is a slight advantage that the Rockets might have over some of these other teams that are in the mix for Durant.
This is what I really just don't want out of it. I don't want it to be. I don't need it to become such a show like it was with Kevin Durant's free agency back in whenever it was when he first went to the Warriors. Remember, he hosted those meetings out in the Hamptons.
The Hampton Five, man, yeah.
And it was. This is what bothered me about it was it was a pain in the ass for every single team that went out to meet with him because it was in the middle of peak tourism season where everything's booked out in the Hamptons. You had the Warriors staff are all sharing a room in some squatty motel somewhere because they couldn't find a place to stay.
Yep.
And could you at the very least just do it in an office building in Phoenix or somewhere? Just don't make a huge production out of that part of it. I just want to wake up one morning and find out what happened.
That's exactly right. The other big story yesterday was that, and it's quickly got cold water poured on it from many, many different angles, but it just goes to show you like the kind of the, I don't know, the conceitedness of the classic New York sports entity. This is from Ian Begley, who covers the Knicks for SNY, and talking about their head coaching opening. They fired Tom Thibodeau a couple days ago. He says this: "My early read is that Dan Hurley isn't at the top of New York's initial list." That's the UConn coach. So who is? Mark Stein reported late Tuesday that Ime Udoka and Jason Kidd are two coaches who are set to intrigue the Knicks. Udoka is a name that I'd heard as well. Ian says this. To hire Udoka, the Knicks would have to get permission from Houston and give the Rockets compensation to let Udoka out of his deal. And I'm going to tell you this right now. There is not a single player on the Knicks roster, and that includes Jalen Brunson, who I love. I think Jalen Brunson is outstanding. There's not a single player on the Knicks, and I don't even know if you're allowed to trade player for coach with the bargaining. Usually it's draft compensation.
Yeah.
But just in a hypothetical world where you could trade a coach for a player, there's not a single player on the Knicks I would trade Ime Udoka for.
No, and to hear that the Knicks are interested in Udoka,
who's under contract for 2 more years.
It feels like it's like you might as well tell me Steve Buscemi hopes he's going to be sexiest man alive this year. All right, great, you're interested in him. Like, what? Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Welcome to the club.
Right.
Listen, Udoka, and especially, like Udoka, obviously you trade for a coach or something. A coach is going to have a big say into whether or not he wants to go there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I want to work for or James Dolan.
James Dolan. Oh, my God.
Tillman Fertitta. I showed up and he's like, "Hey, here's a card. You can eat for free at any of my restaurants, and you could pet a stingray in the aquarium on your way out.
Right.
Bring your kids along. You want to see a white tiger? Ignore the animal protesters. We got them."
Yeah.
James Dolan is like, "Hey, you want to hear the next song I wrote about my pal Harvey Weinstein?"
Dude.
Like, no. Sorry,
play
Knicks. Oh, you're interested in Udoka. Good for you.
Have you ever listened to a James Dolan song from his band?
I remember listening to the one he wrote about Harvey Weinstein.
Oh my God! I think it's James Dolan and the Straight Shot is the name of his band. And
is there anything worse than the Billionaire Band? Like where it just, that was rest in peace, Irsay and all that. But man, I did not need to hear him.
Oh yeah, Irsay. Yeah, he's a big music guy.
It's still not as bad as the Hollywood superstar who has their own band, and then we'll do interviews where the interviewer is instructed that, no, I'm only talking about my band.
I will not let you besmirch the good name of Kevin Costner that way, okay?
Costner played the game, though, because he wanted to talk about his band, but he was also going to talk about, like, other things.
Yeah.
Where Billy Bob Thornton was the one who's, like, had a couple. Billy Bob Thornton's got some clips where the interviewer was only supposed to ask him about the band and where they were playing and everything, and then Billy Bob Thornton shut it down.
Oh my God!
Which I approve of, though, because Billy Bob Thornton's kind of got a badass vibe to him. So I'm like, that's just him being difficult, you know.
It's just.
You might as well be.
You're getting some military people texting in here from your question in the previous
I
segment.
had made the analogy of sometimes an offensive coordinator, it feels like when in the military you get orders from the rear, from headquarters, where the officers on the ground and at the front are like, this isn't going to work. This is like, these guys do not understand our situation.
Yep.
Was I accurate in the way I portrayed it?
I'm going to read the text here. Good military. Oh, this is just somebody putting up a good military quote. I'll read the ones. Can confirm the accuracy of what you're saying, Seth. Source: I was Army infantry from 03 to 08.
Yeah.
Another text. Absolutely right, Seth. Field operations can radio in for our platoon to flank left 300 yards, but if our sergeant, platoon leader, sees a field of fire, we're flanking right.
Yeah.
Calls an audible right there.
There's a part of that's a part of just being an officer that it's fascinating to me, because those guys, they have to choose when to ignore orders. And that, like, on the ground and everything, but also, like, you're in this culture of, like, follow orders, follow orders, follow orders.
Yep.
It's like the experience on that's why I can see why. And again, I base this on nothing except movies and things I've read. But like when you get a fresh lieutenant right out of West Point, like, it's got to be scary as hell.
Oh,
because
yeah.
this guy's like, and plus he wants the glory and everything, and you're like, meanwhile you got all the grizzled old.
He's got all the analytics.
Seen it all and done everything.
He's like,
that
sorry, Chief, our expected kills were much higher than our actual kills.
Yeah, they are. They're like, I shouldn't be laughing about it because I know this is ugly. But yeah, that's like. In a more, when it's not dire circumstances, It does feel like that with young offensive coordinators sometimes. They don't understand how things work on the ground.
Good military quote. This is a text. No battle plan survives the first enemy fire, meaning you can write up the most textbook amazing thing, but when it gets real, you better know how to react.
Yeah.
We had somebody else text in about, here it is. When you're in the emergency room, you don't want the smartest doctor. You want the doctor that can adapt to surprises.
Right.
I think that's another way of saying it's a medical version of your analogy, right?
You don't want a doctor that's going to come up to your gaping chest wound and be like, well, I'm expecting cover 2, and that's how I'm going to proceed.
That's right. No.
And the nurse is like, no. They're playing man. And the doctor's like, nope, they're playing cover 2. La, 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 la.
This chest wound is zero blitzing you right now. Right now.
No, listen, we've got a game plan for this, okay?
Exactly.
Now give me that thing that pinches the artery to close off the blood. I don't know what it's called. Yeah.
Exactly.
A clamp? That doesn't sound right.
Could you see a scenario realistically where we get Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo? I do not. That's a lot of salary to match.
That would be something that I don't think that would involve basically swapping everything out.
You're
like
trading
all the
your
good
team.
You'd be throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes,
on that one.
yeah. Like if at the end of the
that might make Udoka open to a trade to the Knicks.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think star players, and if they do that, I'm cool with it. It would be more exciting if they got one of these guys for sure. But I'm cool. Like if they need more shooting. That's the big thing. If they roll it back with this group, if they don't add shooting, then I'll be a little disappointed.